Hey, peace, 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 family. This is Circle Sisters 13, Zora Aurora, and I want to speak with you briefly about the movie Maleficent. This live is a prequel to next month's book study on what is the goddess. If you are interested in participating in that book study, message me, DM me, leave a message below and let me know that you're interested. This is exclusively for women. Brothers, y'all know I love you. I love you. I love you. However, this is specifically for women, ladies. So if you're interested, send me a message and I will send you information about when we're gonna go online and the book. It's a really good book. I found the book. I finally found it. And I think that it's going to be a very powerful and transformative book study. It's not gonna be too crazy. It's gonna be, my intentions is for it to be 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 days. We'll meet on Sundays online and we'll just talk about information in the book and we'll build on that. So hit me up. All right. So Maleficent is a movie. And I'm pretty sure you all have seen some of the previews. Hopefully, you've seen the movie. If not, I will try not to spoil it too much. um, and I wanted to go over Maleficent the movie specifically because movies are so important. They are a primary way that culture is transmitted. Cultural values, cultural themes. They are the way that many of the mysteries, many of those esoteric occultic mysteries, it's a way to get them out to the masses or to get them out to the few because they put them in films that might be targeted. So, for instance, a movie might come out and you don't care for the actors, you don't care for the content of it. And so that one was not targeted towards you. However, there are people who, for whatever reason, something that the preview said, it triggers something in them and they know, okay, I need to go watch this. And so that's what Maleficent did for me. The first time, this was the second Maleficent, there was one previous. When it came to the movies, the first time I saw it, I was sold. Yes, I want to see it. It looked awesome. And because it was very heavily feminine energy, that's what really did it for me. Because while I do love chick flicks, I will watch a Hallmark movie in a minute, especially on Sundays. I am a mother, so y'all know mothers. We love our Hallmark movies, our feel good movies, our love stories and happy endings. But I'm also a dark feminine. I also study the dark mysteries. I've also gone through my own dark initiations, and so when I saw the movie. I saw the previews and I saw this horned first of all, Angelina Jolie. Let's just start there. Anything she's in, I'm gonna go see because she's a beast. She's obviously a witch. She's obviously, she one of them chicks that I'm gonna go see her movie. It's a couple of actresses that I don't care what they're in. If they are in it, if they chose that role, if they chose to participate in it, I am going to go see it. So that was the first thing that prompted me to go see it. It was Angelina Jolie. Then, she was this horned woman wearing all black and flying with wings and it was based on a fairy tale and when it was the dark side of Sleeping Beauty. Yeah, I knew that I needed to go see it. So I enjoyed the first one. And then when this one came out and they showed all the other flying creatures and they showed I cannot think of her name right now. But when they showed her rival, Queen Ingrid, yeah, I was pick me, pick me. I'm gonna go see it. Pick me, give me a ticket. I want to see it. So I did, and I'm so glad I saw it on the big screen. It was beautiful. Okay, not even talking about the story. The movie is beautiful. It is awesome. And I can imagine what it was like. And I didn't see it in 3D, But I can imagine how awesome the experience would have been in 3D because it reminded me, some of the scenes reminded me of Avatar. And if you saw Avatar, you know what I'm talking about, where it was just they created a whole world. And I'm sure it was virtual, well, it had to have been virtual because they were flying. But yeah, it was dope. It was well done. It was definitely well done. This movie made right at this point is I believe it's at 550 million dollars. I don't know how much money they put into it, but you can tell that they weren't cheap about it. The costumes were beautiful, the technology was on point, and the storyline was I appreciated the storyline. And so there was a very, the storyline was layered. You had your really on one layer, you had just the story of um well, okay, so let's get into it. Okay, so I am not going to tell you the movie. Let me not do that. What I do want to focus on is feminine fire. Okay. Feminine fire. So when I say feminine fire, I'm specifically talking about Maleficent and the mysteries of feminine fire and how she embodied that mystery. And we could be here all night talking about it, but I have a couple of points. And so let me just go through these points. And if you have any questions, just ask them below. Or, like I said, go ahead and join us for the goddess study and we'll get more into some of our mysteries, okay? So feminine fire. Let's start with Maleficent and just her appearance. She is very Luciferian, correct? She looks like a devil. She has horns. She has all black. She has these intense cheekbones. Her character looks very, very dark, and it looks like Lucifer. She looks like a dark angel. And actually, she's a fae, she's a fairy. And when I was doing the background research on it, they linked it to her original character, the 1950s character in Sleeping Beauty. And that same cartoon character had the horns. She had a cape though. She didn't have the wings, but she did have the horns. And she was an evil fairy godmother. So that's where the fairy came from. But this story it expands on that fairy concept. So it has her as a fae, a dark fae, and a fae is a fairy. And she is the guardian of the Moors. And so when we talk about Luciferian character, we're talking about horns, darkness. She's able to divvy out curses. She kills people when she kills um, anyone who comes and attempts to destroy the Moors, who comes in and attempts to bring destruction into the Moors, which is the forested area surrounded by water. She brings them death and calamity. And so her fire was, and so when you look at Maleficent from the first movie, we see how her fire. Okay, let me go back. So what is fire? So when it comes to magic, there is a thing called elemental magic. Elemental magic are the elements. So you have earth, water, fire, and air. And so when I say feminine fire, I'm specifically speaking about the element of fire. We all embody all of the elements. If you're familiar with Chinese, the Chinese wheel, they have different types. They have like moist fire, dry fire. They have different they blend different elements to prescribe different type of healing modalities for people. You're characterized by your elements. And so that's what I'm talking about when I say fire. And so Maleficent is a fire being. She is a fae. She is a fairy. She looks like Lucifer. Lucifer was the light bringer, was a fire. Light is what is the ultimate light? The ultimate light is the sun. What is the sun? A big ass ball of fire. So she is a fire being, a fire character, and we'll get more into that. I don't want to spoil it, but there comes a point in the movie where she sees her true self. She's introduced to her true self and her origins, and it's based in fire. That's what I say about that. However, um, whereas she might have started out a fire being as a child in the first Maleficent, we see where her fire is taken from her. Literally, it's rape. She's raped. And because it's a children's movie, they don't show the rape. But what they did, they clipped her, the man that betrayed her clipped her wings. And so that is symbolic of him raping her. And so she went through a trauma that wounded her so much so that it took her fire from her. And so that's where the depression comes in. That's where the hatred towards man, humankind comes in. And we'll see in the movie where there's a point when she should have destroyed everything. She should have used her fire. Remember, she can do curses, right? She has the power to wield. She has the power to wield out justice. She can zap. She can zap people, There's a point where she should have done it and she didn't do it. Instead, in essence, she ran away because her fire was off. She did not use her fire properly. And so it is my understanding that this movie is about how she regains her feminine fire. And it's an initiation for us viewing it because it's initiation for women into us beginning to look at ourselves and questioning, where is our fire? Where is our feminine fire? Is our feminine fire balanced? Do we use it properly? Do we need to add more fuel to our fire? Do we need more passion? Do we need to bring more justice into our lives? Do we personally need to bring justice, right? Are there people that we need to fire burn? And so that's what this movie, one of the many themes of this movie. And so, excuse me. And so she's raped in the first one. They clip her wings. Literally, they cut her wings off. And that prompts her descent. And so when I say descent, I'm speaking her descent into her shadows, into the underworld, which is a feminine mystery. And I'm not going to go into that right now. However, all the women, if they are striving towards their own power, if they're striving towards embodying and becoming the witch, they have to take the descent. As hard as it is, as much as you don't want to do it, you have to take the descent. And not only do you have to take it, you got to come out of it. Yeah. Okay, so when we look at her opposition, when we look at her, the antagonist, Queen Ingrid, we see someone who on the surface looks like love and light, right? She has on all white, she's blonde, she's beautiful, she's what would be considered beautiful. She has all this beautiful jewelry on. She's the queen. And she appears to be a benevolent queen, right? You have Maleficent, then you have the benevolent. That's what she appears to be on the surface. However, she is the polar opposite of Maleficent. So whereas Maleficent has lost her fire, um, whereas she's been wounded to the point that her fight, basically her fight, has been taken from her. We have Queen Ingrid, who is the complete opposite. Queen Ingrid is conniving, she's manipulative, she's strategic, she's lying to her husband, she's manipulating the kingdom for her own purposes and for her own good. And that's not a spoiler. If you watch the previews, they hit at it. So she is an alchemist. And so when you remember, we're talking about fire. When you're talking about fire, we're talking about alchemy. This is what she is, and she's using alchemy for her greatest good. And so she's taking fire, right? She knows how to use her fire. There is no lack of fire with this woman. Actually, it's in excess, right? She's to the other extreme. So she's using fire to forge metals, to make iron. Maleficent, her kryptonite is iron. And Ingrid, her kryptonite is nature, is flowers, polar opposites. So, I found something interesting about Ingrid when I was researching her name. And this is going to link to the gods and goddesses of this movie. A lot of movies, especially movies like this that are going over mysteries and are going over occultic principles and themes, on the low, 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 they are evoking certain energies, right? So they're definitely evoking fire. Fire is all up and through this movie. However, I believe they're also invoking their gods, their goddesses and their gods, as they should, as we all should. If you know, Christians evoke Jesus because they feel as though Jesus is the one who is opening doors for them, making ways for them, comforting them. Jesus is bringing them healing. And so every chance they get, they're evoking his name, they're evoking his image, his likeness. The same thing with Muslims, the same thing with Buddhists. All these people are evoking these principles that are basically feeding them, that they feel is feeding them. And there's no difference for occultists. Whatever that spirit is, that demon, that angel, that entity, whatever it is that is bringing them the ideas and bringing them the information and allowing them to be able to bring it to the screen and show it to their people, to their believers, and bring in $500 million in a month. They're going to definitely, give them what they want, give them the attention and focused intent that they want. And so I believe that so if you've ever listened to me, if you've ever listened to any of my blog talk shows, and this is a form of that blog talk, we will be kicking that off very soon, back off very soon. But if you ever listen to any of my old blog talks, you know that I have this sneaking suspicion that America, although it's supposed to be a Christian country, I believe under that layer, it's actually a Norse country, a Viking country. I believe that many of those in charge secretly worship Viking gods and Viking kings. And if you watch Game of Thrones, not Game of Thrones, well, Game of Thrones, but if you watched American Gods, then you'll see why I say that. Because American Gods definitely pointed towards the Viking pantheon. So, anywho, when I was looking up Ingrid's name, it actually pointed to a Norse god called Ing, I-N-G. I-N-G, right? Like I-N-G, I-N-G. That's at the end of any word when you're doing it. Anytime any action word, walking, talking, singing, dancing, fucking. Yeah, I-N-G. That was the god. That was a progenitor god of the Norse pantheon. And it actually it means, okay, so Ingor, her name was Ingrid, which is a derivative of Ingor, Grior, Ingrior, which means Ing is beautiful. And so Ing, Old English is Ing, as in ing hyphen ine. It sounds like engine. And it ended up being translated into Freyr, Freyr. And Freyr means Lord. And so I found that very, very interesting that this queen, who is a high alchemist, queen of the land, very, like I say, strategic, conniving, cutthroat, and They give her some depth. They do have reasoning as to why she's such the bitch that she is. But I found it interesting that her name is actually saying that Ing is beautiful. It's honoring that Norse god that is supposed to be the originator. And you know what? Let me see if my computer works, because since we coming down this little snake hole, this rabbit hole, oh, it went off. Maybe another time. Go ahead and look up that name, ing, because when I was researching it, it talked about how it says that ing came from Asia. Yeah. So, but I wanted to read the whole thing to you, but my computer turned off. So that's enough of that. Um, all right. So, do. Okay, so that was all of my notes. I just wanted to throw some of those things out there and just give you some information about that. So we have Maleficent, who again, her fire was quelled, her fire was dampened because of the trauma that she went through, and through the course of this movie, by learning herself, taking her descent, and knowing herself, which is one of the reasons I made this is because that's one of those things that I want to stress in this is know yourself. Know yourself, know yourself. That is an age-old axiom, and it's so important because once she learned her true nature, and she only learned her true nature during her descent. During her descent, her people came, well, I don't want to spoil it, but during her descent, she learned her true nature. She learned her true self. And by learning her true nature and learning her true self, she found the power to rekindle her flame. And by rekindling her flame, she was able to live up to her full potential as Maleficent. And she was able to bring justice to those who needed justice. I mean, it's a movie. I'm not really spoiling that because it's a Disney movie, right? So all Disney movies are going to end with a happy ending. So if you ain't figured that out, about well, I'm not going to say that, but just know that Disney movies are going to have happy endings because it's kids watching, and you want to give kids a happy ending, right? While they're kids, let them be kids. Let them think that you know in a fantasy world, happy endings happen. So there is a happy ending. Maleficent does she does rekindle her flame by looking at herself, looking at the situation around her, taking a hard look at it, and making some really tough decisions. And then you have the other queen who, like I say, she was on the other extreme. And what I will spoil is say that at the end of the movie, she ends up getting horns too, which she needs them because she was definitely a Luciferian character as well. And so I will leave with the questions of what is the proper use of fire and how do we properly use fire, and to ask yourself, how are you using your fire? How are you keeping your passions alive? How are you keeping your motivations to accomplish your dreams, to accomplish your goals? What are you doing to make sure those things stay important, stay lively, stay invigorated for you? How are you doing that? And if you're not, you need to begin working on that because um what happens to a raisin in the sun? What happens to a raisin in the sun, right? Heaven forbid your dreams wither and just fade away. That is such a tragedy. And some dreams we do have to release. However, there needs to be at least one or two dreams that you never let go of, whether that be to write a book, whether that be to learn another language, to travel to another country, to find true love, which is yourself. You are your true love. You are your greatest love, right? Um, to make more friends, to learn how to bake a cake, whatever your goals are. And if you don't have goals, you definitely need to set some. walk a mile, participate in a marathon. It could be many, 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 many things. But make sure you have those goals and you work diligently towards accomplishing those goals. And it starts with one candle. Light you a candle. Light a candle. Light a candle and meditate on the flame. Okay? All right. Peace, y'all.